This week on Asia Business Report, we've been looking at how economies in the region have fared since the Asian financial crisis 2 decades ago. Nowhere was the impact greater than in Indonesia. The economic turmoil sparked riots against the Chinese community in the country, turning the streets of Jakarta into a war zone. After 3 decades in power, Indonesian strongman President Suharto resigned, paving the way today for what is considered one of Southeast Asia's democratic success stories. Our Asia business correspondent Karishma Vaswani joins me now in our studios. And Karishma, you grew up in Indonesia. Tell us, what was the transition like there?
Well, Rico, I remember, really vividly images of the supermarket down my street up in flames because of the protests and the looting that took place in the immediate aftermath of the crisis. But I think what's really important to remember is that Indonesia came out of that transition. It emerged out of the dictatorship that President Suharto had for more than 30 years there, and has become a thriving democracy. Southeast Asia's largest economy, FDI, foreign direct investment, is pouring in. But Rico, even now there are concerns that that delicate balance between the religious and ethnic communities in Indonesia that is so crucial to its economic success may be under threat, may be at risk, as I found out recently when I went back home to Jakarta. May 1998, when Indonesia was at war with itself. The capital, Jakarta, one of Asia's great cities, up in flames. Former President and dictator Suharto was forced to step down after 3 decades in power. Chaos spilled out onto the streets, while soldiers and tanks hunted down protesters. What a difference 20 years can make. In place of the protests and the tanks that once rolled down these streets, luxury malls and foreign brand names instead. Jakarta is Indonesia's capital, a symbol of its economic success. But there are still many here who are struggling with the aftermath of the Asian financial crisis that wrecked so many lives in Indonesia. Ini anak saya. Back then, Sri Arti was a successful mini-mart owner. She showed me pictures of the store she had been building, one she'd taken a loan to fund. But then the crisis hit.
I lost everything. I couldn't pay back my loan because the interest rate shot up. The bank repossessed my shop and land.
And then it got worse. In a matter of months, the Indonesian rupiah plummeted by more than 80% against the US dollar. Mass protests and looting erupted on the streets. Chinese Indonesians bore the brunt of the outrage. Meiti Holi's toy store in Chinatown was shut for 3 days because of the riots.
In the beginning, people were too scared to leave their homes, but then things got better, and my business also grew.
It's that growing middle class that's boosted the country's economic growth. And after decades of authoritarian rule, Southeast Asia's largest economy today is also a thriving democracy. But democracy has also brought out another side. Recent demonstrations against an ethnic Chinese mayor have raised concerns that small but vocal groups of hardline Muslims are getting increasingly influential, threatening Indonesia's economic stability. But for those like Anne who had to start afresh, the sweet taste of success. She now runs an organic farm, catering to the growing demands of those with spending power. Her fortune and those of millions of Indonesians depends on this country's economic success, but that success hangs on the delicate ethnic and political balance that keeps this nation together.
And Karishma, I reported as well on the Asian financial crisis 2 decades ago, and it was a nightmare seeing the rupiah fall so much against the US dollar. But tell us more about the ethnic concerns. How could this impact economic growth?
Well, Rico, as you well know, the Chinese-Indonesian business community really is the main pillar of wealth there. And if there are ongoing concerns that they're going to be targeted again, as they were back in 1998, I think there's going to be real fear about Indonesia's economic growth going forward. Notwithstanding that, it is one of the strongest growing in the region, and we'll have a lot more on the Asian financial crisis and the impact that it had on all of the countries that were affected over the weekend in a special program, Rico. I know you'll have a report from the Philippines as well. Yes, so lots more for our audiences to watch out for over the coming days.
All right, you have